Hey everyone, welcome to this lesson and welcome to this practice session. So in this one, we're going to create a really simple code to put everything you've learned so far in this section to use and create a program that checks if a number is even or odd. So the idea with this is that this is pretty much gonna, make you put everything we've talked about so far from if and else statements and also modulo to use and essentially just turn it into a very simple program. So as always, the file or the replet file is essentially in the description, so check it out for yourself. Click it, it's going to take you to the replet. You can actually fork the code and it's going to allow you to access the code right here. This is the base code I have for you, some comments and also the number input, so just make it easier for you. So I got the input, so obviously it's an integer and we got an input. So that's pretty much it, right? This is where you start. So I want you to actually try to figure this out. So think about it. What you want to do is first you want to figure out if the input or the user input essentially is an even number or an odd number, and if that's the case, you're going to show a print or a text, essentially say this is an even number and this is, or if not, you can say if it's an odd number. So again, very simple stuff, but I want you to think about it. I don't want you to copy me. Please just try to figure it out by yourself so you can practice everything you learned so far. All right, so with that being said, I'm just going to give you a second and then we'll start solving this equation. All right guys, so I hope you've tried it at least to make it. If you did create the program successfully, that's awesome. That means that you've been learning. And if you didn't, it's completely fine. Let's just go ahead and start, and let me actually show how this is done so you can see where you could have actually made a mistake, something like that. All right, so with that being said, let's get into it. So what we're going to do, the first thing is I want to open an if statement, right? So, and I'm going to say number, if number, so we already have an integer, so we don't have to convert it, right? So we're going to say if number is modulo 2 equals 0. So what I'm actually saying is that here is that let me actually go back here and calculate something before we actually continue. I want to explain why I'm actually going this way. So if you think about it with the modulo, what we could do, let me see if I can type here. There we go. So if you actually say, for example, 11 modulo like 3, we get whatever number, right? But here's the thing, you can actually try to use anything, any possible number, and use it with modulo to essentially get and to figure out if it's an even or odd number. And the way you do this is that you put that number, for example 15 modulo 2. So obviously if a number is divided by 2 and it comes out 0, that means that if it comes out essentially an even number, that means that it's an even number, right? So for example, in this case, we say 15 modulo by 2, that is 1. So that means that this is actually an odd number. But for example, if you use an even number, let's say 18, and do modulo by 2, we're going to get a 0. So when the answer is 0, that means it's an even number. But the answer is not 0, that means it's an odd number. So usually that's 1, right? So for example, let's say 390 or 93, for example. Modulo by 2, that should give us 1, right? So here's why we're using this statement. So essentially what I'm doing is that I'm saying that if number, that's the number the user is going to enter, modulo by 2 equals 0, that means that if this number modulo by 2 equals 0, this means that this is an even number. So I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next line, essentially the indented. So when you click enter or press enter, it's going to indent. I'm going to print this is an even number, just like that. And then for the else, that means that what if it's an odd number? So I'm going to go back, I'm going to say else and say print, and we're going to say this is an odd number. So just like that, we created this very, very simple program. So if I run this, let's enter, for example, 297. That should give us an odd number. There you go. This is an odd number. Very simple, guys. See, you can use this stuff to just figure out all sorts of problems, and we used modulo, if and else statements to make it very simple, Very simple program. So let me know, how did you do about on this? Like, let me know if you had any questions or confusions, because we're getting into more complicated problems right now, and I want you to make sure that you get everything 100% before you move on to the next lesson. So it's really, really important. If you need to practice, make sure you do that so you're proficient with everything before you watch the next one, because if you don't understand something, it can get you a little bit confused, and then you go to the next lesson and that even gets you more confused, and that way you pile up on a lot of confusion and knowledge that just you don't know what to do with. So it's really, really important to understand it. So let me know if you have any questions. You can access the files in the resources section, so you can fork it for yourself and start practicing this. And if you have any questions, let me know. If not, I'll see you in the next lesson.